Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, wherever you're listening. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. We got 2/3 here. We're here with the Madman. Salute to Troy brought to you by Bet Online. Go to betonline.ag where the game starts. Also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Put in promo code USC LAFB on the app or go to underdogfantasy.com and get a $100 bonus match. Madman, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see you. Back in our usual spots, if you will. You know, having you host and sort of me analyze is we're back to normal here after last week with the Victory Bell series and, you know, back to normal a bit. And so excited to break it all down with you. And I see, Coach, that you've got a beautiful sort of angel over your left shoulder. Goes by the name of Lincoln Riley.
Or L Dot. Or you could call him L Dot.
Yeah.
Like they say K Dot, you could call him L Dot. No, I saw this the other day and I sent it to you guys. I was like, I can't pass this up. This is for sure
Totally
my background. I couldn't pass this up. This is like I could move out the way so you could completely see it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the whole buckle and, you know, the jeans, the leather jacket, but still the visor. You know, there was some fun chatter on Twitter over the last day or so where everyone's like, I don't know how I feel about this. You know, it's
I couldn't pass
great.
that up.
Absolutely.
It was like perfect timing. I think the caption to it said like the King of LA or something like that, but I couldn't pass it. He's not the King of LA yet until he starts recruiting all these number one things. I will say this, and we're going to jump into recruiting today. I think if you go to LAFB Network, Ryan put out a good story. Or he put something on Twitter, and he was actually my old high school coach, modern day with Coach Laura. And I don't know if you remember the comment, but I was like, that's a really good sign because Coach Laura loves sending players to SC. And I think Lincoln Riley is building that modern day connection back to do what you love, build the role around LA. And so it's a good sign. I don't think recruiting is there yet for 26, but I do think 27, 28, I think we are building the wall around LA. And I'll say that because of we got somebody from Folsom that is Tebow S. I'll just put it like that. So we'll get into recruiting a little bit later. I just wanted to give a little insight on that, but I love that right there. Before we jump into recruiting, though, get deep dive. Let's talk about the UCLA game, make it a little bit more USC centric. We don't have Thrill here anymore. And I know we love Thrill, but Thrill's gone, so we don't have to listen to that.
Thrill's gone, as are UCLA's bowl hopes. Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm gonna take UCLA side for a little bit. And there are times where I take UCLA side. I think the rivalry is great for Los Angeles. I do think that. But I also think that I'll just say the front office. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you. I'll just say the front office. I would say the front office at UCLA needs to understand what this rivalry means and what it means to LA football. That's what I would say. It's kind of like what we're talking about with like the front office at SC needs to understand like the small things that means a lot to SC. And I think UCLA needs to figure that out. But at the end of the day, like it needs to come back. Right. And so jumping into that, SC was the better team. I said that, SC was the better team, but SC didn't play as the better team, but they were just able to overcome it because they were the better team. You know what I mean? I'm a little upset, man. I'm a little upset. I'm upset with planting the flag in the middle of the field. And I sent that to a lot of my SC friends, and they all said the same thing. They all said the exact same thing. They don't know how to win. Like, winning is a celebration to them compared to when you went there and when I played there, it was a normal thing.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure you heard me say this before. You don't hope in sports. You just know. Right, you walk in and you know you're going to win. You know the outcome of the game, and I was a little bit upset with that, and I kind of don't know where the direction is going with this rivalry, man. And that's more disappointing with me. I know we should be happy that we won, but I care more about the victory bell. I hate losing the victory bell, but losing the victory bell is good every now and then. I lost it personally, you know what I mean?
Right,
but I
right,
won it
yeah.
back, like, you know what I mean? But I just don't know where this rivalry is going. And I'm sorry, I kind of derailed it. And you could talk about the game, but it's been kind of weighing heavy since yesterday. And just thinking about it today, like, we have to figure out how to get this rivalry back to where it was. Even when I played in the 2000s, like, it was anybody's game. Like, we have to get it back to that, and back to 12:30. So disrespectful by the Big Ten to put that game on at 7:30. Like it's just so much that means a lot to Southern California, and I don't know how we get it back, but I just wish we can get it back.
No, Coach, I think you said it really well, and I'm really happy that you brought this up. I know we were going to talk about on the field, and we'll get there, but there's so much to unpack, so much depth to what you just said, and I think both schools are responsible and accountable for diminishing this rivalry a bit the last few years. I'll start, with UCLA in the sense that I just don't know how much UCLA cares about football at this point moving forward. The key linchpin actually for the days that we grew up, Coach, right? I mean, when you're talking 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when it was sort of anybody's game, to your point, Charles Young was really the chancellor at UCLA for about 25 or 30 years. He cared deeply about football. And like it or not, we can talk about sort of delicateness or political correctness or what have you, but you have to have a chancellor or a university president that cares very deeply about football. And that has to translate in terms of policies. Like it or not, you have to have a separate admissions track for football players. You have to have certain kind of major tracks for football players. It's not from an intelligence standpoint in any way, shape, or form, but just the amount of time, Coach, and you can speak to this firsthand, that you spend being a student athlete. You can't expect the same majors, the same admissions criteria, or just the same way that a traditional student goes about it. And he understood that, and he created policies at UCLA to be able to enable that. And you saw the result of that. I mean, wildly competitive. I mean, 80s, Coach, UCLA won 3 Rose Bowls. SC won 3 Rose Bowls, right? The 90s, it was going back and forth. I mean, it meant so much to the city. UCLA, the last 2 or 3 chancellors, they're so focused on kind of the academic side and the research side and the medical that they have eliminated those policies. And now moving forward, you just wonder. I think the UCLA community is really at an existential crisis when it comes to football, of how much does this university prioritize or even care about football moving forward in an era where you need even more resources and even more investment to be able to be competitive. And so I think that's a deep systemic, seismic issue for UCLA. On the SC side, Coach, I just wish there was more pageantry and care. I know you gave me a lot of flack for saying, hey, I think UCLA is going to win this game on Saturday, not for anything else, but because I think they just care about it more, and you sort of saw that over the course of the week with the comments and the appearances at various events. I found it very disappointing that Lincoln Riley didn't attend Conquest. I found it very disappointing that, there wasn't more chatter and more enthusiasm about this game. And, they were sort of treated like another game. If you treat it like another game, Coach, it's going to end up becoming like another game, right? And so That's what I'm upset about on the SC side, is where is that enthusiasm? Part of the fun of the week is the trash talk. Part of the fun is, it was a little thing, even like the Trojan Knights, for instance, when they get to guard Tommy all night,
yeah.
The university, there was some pushback there to kind of let them stay, obviously, in response to a lot of the protests that happened last spring. So I understand it from sort of a safety standpoint, but you have to bring that enthusiasm to this rivalry if you're USC. And that's the one thing I'm hoping with Lincoln Riley, that he starts understanding this. It's taken him so long to figure out what's important to USC tradition and USC history and the Trojan Wall. I hope he just kind of gets there. Frankly, Coach, shouldn't be taking 3 years to figure out. This is you should know this on day 3 on the job. It shouldn't be on year 3 on the job, And so I think that's kind of the concern, Coach, on the SC side. And to your point, I think it's a great one. Look, I'm going to quote John McKay, the great John McKay, the legendary John McKay, when he said, there's nothing worse than losing to UCLA, and there's nothing better than beating Notre Dame, right? And he said it that way in particular, because in this rivalry, SC is Goliath and UCLA is David. That is the sort of the matchup. So if UCLA wants to go and plant the flag on the Coliseum, they should be able to because they're the David, right? But you don't see Goliath going and planting the flag on David Stadium, right? I think to your point, Coach, and I think that's where, you sort of worry about it. I appreciate the sentiment with Woody Marks, but I also found it kind of interesting, right? He was like, I saw UCLA plant the flag at the Coliseum last year, and it upset me, and I wanted to do it. Woody Marks was at South Carolina last year. He wasn't even a Trojan, and so that's, I love the sentiment. I love sort of the heart and the intention there, but that's kind of interesting. Like, you didn't even firsthand experience losing to UCLA last year. You saw it literally on TV, like so many of us, and then you wanted to go sort of plant the flag. It's kind of like the Lakers trying to plant the flag on Intuit Dome, or
Intuit Dome, yeah.
It doesn't make any, or the Dodgers trying to plant the flag, at Angel Stadium. It's like, what are you doing? You are the flagship brand here. Like, what were you? Goliath doesn't need to go plant the flag on David's Field. Like, what are you? You're almost diminishing yourself. So I think that's a great point, Coach, moving forward. And we'll get into the game, but I think both schools need to sort of look a little bit more inward, to your point, for different reasons. To sort of assess how do we kind of get back to that rivalry, because if this is lost, Coach, it would really be unfortunate. The 12 miles apart, it's so unique. There just, even the way you sat in the stadium, so many folks, split families, everyone's kind of sitting together, talking smack with each other. It's so special that we can't lose it.
And it's crazy because I like to think that House Divided started with this rivalry because it's so
absolutely
close. You know what I mean? I like to think that you could easily marry somebody that went to the opposing
for
school
sure,
easily, without a doubt, or work with somebody there. I was legit working with somebody, and we had a meeting last Monday, and I legit told her, I can't talk to you this week. And
right.
she's like, good, because I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, and everybody's like, what's going on? I'm like, she went to UCLA. It's the SC UCLA week. And it was like, oh, okay. We thought something. So it's those type of things. Let's jump on the field. Hey, so, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday. I was really impressed with the fourth quarter, right? And a lot of thinking since 10 o'clock yesterday morning to where we at 7 o'clock right now. A lot of thinking, and I wonder if they could do this consistently. You know what I mean? And when I say that, I wonder. So we let's go back to last year, right? Or last December, they go to the Holiday Bowl, put on a great performance, right? And you're like, wow, okay, this is a team now. Like, they really turned it on. They go to Las Vegas, and you look, you're like, oh, we got something cooking here. We're getting excited. We're all getting excited. Everybody has great games. They play Utah State. They handled Utah State way better than they handled teams like that in the past. They get to Michigan. I think they played a better ball game against Michigan, right? Things happen. It is what it is. And then all of a sudden, it's just like the wheels just came off. And it makes me question the top, right? A good team walks out of Ann Arbor like, hey, okay, take that. Take that bloody lip, wipe it off, look at that blood, don't let it happen to you again, right? And it seems like we get, and this is the second year now, it's like we get punched in the mouth and we just put our hands down and we constantly get punched in the mouth again. So it's like, how do we continue that? You saw great. The defense was just, and I'm always hard on the defense. The defense played amazing, man. I love that front four. Even though Gavin Meyer's not coming back, those three youngsters are coming, dude. I think you see the upside in those three youngsters, and you're like, oh boy, like this is coming. Like you see something being built here. I'm a little worried about the depth still, but we got to get the depth. But the defense is just coming. I'm happy Ramsey is probably coming back, right? We're going to lose Jaden Smith, and we're going to lose Greedy Vance, but it's okay. I feel like there's depth there where we're able to recover that. My thing is, and you can jump into this in your analysis too. How do we continue that, right? Like, I know it's based on that guy right there, like him. It's based on him, right? But like, how do we make it a constant cycle? How do we make it a normal thing like we're used to seeing? You know what I mean, Matt? Man, what do you got on that?
Yeah, no, Coach. I mean, I think you said it best. In terms of it really came down to that fourth quarter. And I think the numbers really back it up, Coach. I mean, for me, and an article on this is coming out on LAFBnetwork.com tomorrow.
Who's writing it? Who's writing it?
Myself, Coach.
Oh, there you go. Give yourself the credit, bro.
And so the game for me, Coach, really was won in the final 9 minutes. I mean, if you look at, just take the 9-minute mark of this game, and I remember looking at the clock, and the clock struck 9 minutes. Look at the situation at that 9-minute mark. The play that just happened was Garbers threw that bomb to Sturdivant from UCLA's own 1-yard line, if you recall. And, UCLA's got the ball now at their own 26-yard line with all the momentum. Context of the game is 13-9 UCLA, the infamous 13-9 UCLA. I had my buddy Ash next to me, and he's like, man, if we lose a second 13-9 game, I don't know if I can ever walk back into this stadium, and, we're sort of looking
What up, Ash?
Yeah. We're sort of looking at each other in that regard. And it's 13-9, 9 minutes to go. And look at the context, Coach. UCLA had reeled off 10 consecutive points. Look, the first half was a game of blown opportunities for SC. 3 possessions inside the 5-yard line. First and goal from the 5, the 4, the 2. We come away with 3 field goals. UCLA has those 3 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties at the half. They kick off from the 5. We get it at the 50. We can't do anything with it. Jacoby, that ball was a little wide. Jacoby can't bring it in. We get stopped on 4th down. We get another drive inside the UCLA, past the 50-yard line in UCLA plus territory. Maeva had just gotten sacked on that 3rd down where he was kind of holding the ball. So the game just kind of felt like, man, there were so many opportunities to sort of blow this game out. Now it's 9 minutes to go. UCLA is taking the lead. It really felt like the game was slipping away in that moment. And, Coach, ESPN in that moment, at that 9-minute mark, 1st and 10, UCLA at the 26, had 74% prediction that UCLA was going to win the game. It was 74% UCLA at that 9-minute mark. And what we saw in that final 9 minutes, Coach, from that moment of 1st and 10 at the 26, UCLA ran 11 offensive plays, 7 total yards across 3 possessions. And that, to me, was a huge turning point. Hopefully we can sort of bottle this up and take it this season, Coach, because look at what has happened in this season. When this defense has needed a stop, it has never come up with the goods. Whether it is Michigan, whether it was Minnesota, whether it was Maryland, I think a lot was lost in that Washington game. You recall, we got that ball back. We never should have gotten that ball back in that Washington game. You remember that illegal substitution that Washington had on 3rd and 1. They were just turned around, giving it to Coleman. Game would have been over. And then, of course, when we needed the one stop against Penn State, just couldn't get it. Think about the feelings at that moment of saying, man, because even if UCLA, gets 2 more first downs, they punt it from their 50, pin us deep. We get it with the 6-minute mark. Even if we score, right? UCLA now comes back with 2.5 minutes to go. It's just 16-13 at that point, just needing a field goal and possibly more. So even possession-wise, it was set up for UCLA, the Bruins, to win the game. And so to be able to stuff UCLA 11 plays, 7 total yards, Coach, across 3 possessions, I thought was absolutely sensational. Easton Mascarenas-Arnold with that big sack on Garbers on that first possession to stop it. Then, of course, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, stuffing Keegan Jones for no gain, and then stuffing Garbers on the quarterback sneak. And then, of course, that final drive where Garbers goes 0 for 4, 4 incompletes, and it was Sam Green who hit Garbers on that last play, and the ball floated away, and that effectively ended the game. And to me, Coach, Cam Fountain and Sam Green are sort of these 2 pillars that have really stood out to me on the defensive line that I think you can build on for next year. And the fact that they have now experienced the UCLA game, they are now going to be experiencing the Notre Dame game. They've gotten really good reps. What did we say, Coach? I said, look, these last 5-6 games of preseason for 2025, look at the preseason that Cam Fountain and Sam Green are going to have now to build upon for 25 and really be the anchors of that defense. And if you take those 2 guys, you get back a healthy Anthony Lucas. You've got Tompkins there as well. That becomes kind of your defensive front. Stevens at linebacker. You get some of these recruits. You've got a really nice front 7, Coach, that I think can sort of elevate this team moving forward. Now, again, to your point, depth is an issue, but now you're finally getting to a place where the ones are getting to be significant. And I think that, to me, is the big takeaway here. In a year where the defense wilted, in that situation, time and again, they stood tall and did it in the biggest of games in terms of the rivalry game. And can they now bottle that and take it moving forward? So I thought that final 9 minutes, Coach, if this thing turns around for Lincoln next year and moving forward, it's not going to be LSU. It's not going to be the Holiday Bowl. It's not going to be Utah State. It's not even going to be Caleb Bowman's from year one. To me, the inflection point will look back and say that final 9 minutes in the 2024 Victory Bell is when things changed.
Yeah, and that was big on that fourth down. That fourth down was unbelievable, and I know Will's going crazy about it. When it was a fourth down, they had to call the timeout, and they didn't. And I don't know what happened there. I don't know how UCLA botched that, but you have to make USC get another first down to win the game, right? And they blew their last timeout. I'm like, wow, like I don't know who messed that up or how that got messed up. That was just.
But coach, to that point, and it was great. But see, SC didn't capitalize on the drive either, right? Like even after the quarterback sneak stuff, right, got one first down, but then got stalled. Again, it was sort of a couple of Woody Marks runs and then that back shoulder fade to Jacoby that was sort of wide. It was 19-13, right? If SC punches that in, it's 23-13, game over. UCLA then gets the ball back, 2:07 to go, 2:09 to go. They got to go 65 yards to go win the Victory Bell. The game was still on UCLA's racket, and SC needed to come up with a third consecutive stop. I mean, it was 3 consecutive stops to win the game, and to me, that was so significant.
Yeah, but they caught the timeout. After they caught the timeout and didn't get the fourth down, that's when USC took the knees. It was that last.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah.
They should. They blew that.
I got you. On the 4 straight incompletes. Yep, yeah, I got you.
They should. Me and people think I'm crazy. I would have took the penalty and just still try, and then even if I don't get it, make the defense make one more stop. You know what I mean? Like or make Lincoln Riley do something to where he has to get a first down. Because if he doesn't get a first down, UCLA has another opportunity. So
that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. So that one was interesting too. But neither here nor there. I remember when we was doing it, I was like, USC is the better team, right? And you saw USC was the better team. They didn't score the ball, but think about it. They capitalized on all the red zone plays, right? They capitalized on all the red zone. We're looking at 28-13 game. Like it's
halftime. A couple of plays here and there. Look, I think the one in particular you feel like that SC kind of got hosed a little bit was when McCree ran into the ref, on the first drive, because that was a really nice play call. For as much as Lincoln is getting killed for play calling in the red zone, and he should be getting killed, but that was a good play call on that play action. McCree just sort of runs into the ref, and then what can you do, right? And so even if you say you go 2 out of 3, you're not even saying it's perfect. You go 2 out of 3, it's 17-3 at the half. Even if you go 1 out of 3, it's 13-3 at the half, right? It's still a 2-possession game. And the fact that SC went 0 for 3, kept it a 1-possession game, that's when it got shaky, because that's how upsets happen, right? When you have how many times, Coach, have we seen a game where when you have the opportunity to blow a team out and you don't do it, then they come back and get life. And that's why it felt so much at that 9-minute mark. Again, really, that stadium, you could sense an anxiety on the SC side and attention. I think the vast majority of the stadium felt like UCLA was going to win the game at the 9-minute mark of the fourth quarter. And so for the defense to sort of rise up from that, I thought was very significant. Coach, we have been what I will call very specific in terms of our praise for the defense. It's so much of the conversation right now as well. 34 points a game last year, 21 points a game this year. Voila. It's such a better defense, historically better defense. I think you and I are looking at it from a much more nuanced perspective and saying, look, the context matters, the conference matters, the pace of play matters. Go take 30 points a game in the NBA today and go compare to 30 points a game in the NBA 20 years ago. Those are 2 different 30-point games. And it really comes down to a yards per play metric is really the key. To me, those final 11 plays of the Victory Bell game, that was a significant shift in terms of defensive intensity, defensive execution, and defensive outcomes than I saw all year this year and certainly all year last year. So the key is now, can Fountain, Green, Tompkins, can these guys now kind of take that and grow with it with a healthy Anthony Lucas next year?
Yeah, and Gentry. Don't forget Gentry.
And Gentry, of course.
I think
Gentry, Stevens, absolutely.
I think Gentry is Lynn's King's Gamut.
Yep.
I think that's the guy that he'll be able to move around in spots and be able to make plays. So that
Latu role, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. So I definitely think that is. But we got the victory bills. Like we said, the victory bills back home. It's off vacation. It should be primed and be ready to paint Cardinal for next season. Good game. Like you said, let's bottle it up. Let's see what we could do against Notre Dame. Somebody made a good point to me. There was like, actually, I've told this to Jay. Jay called me today, and because he did his show like at 1:00 in the morning his time, and I was like, "Oh, Jay, let me jump on the link." Where he called me. He's like, "Man, I apologize. I was unable to get you." I'm like, "Jay, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not the end of my world or whatever." I was like, he was like, "Coach, you got to give it to him. The defense is better." I'm like, "No, they played really well yesterday."
Yeah.
I was like, one thing I can say is they haven't got blown out this year. You know what I mean? Penn State is one of the top teams in the country. They took Penn State to overtime. Like, they were all within 7 points. They haven't got blown out this year. And I could truly, and our 10-point, like, I could truly say that. And that is, I could take that improvement. But I'm interested to see what they do against Notre Dame. And the reason why I said that is because we'll touch on this real quick, but we'll get into more Notre Dame later in the week. But the reason why I say that is because Notre Dame is another top team that they have to play. Like, when you really look at it, SC schedule isn't that soft. Like, they played a mildly difficult schedule, I would say. But like, let's see how they do. I'm interested to see how many points they put up. And it's going to come to your theory again, the big running back. They're going to run the ball. They got a running back that runs the ball, and he runs the ball downhill. He runs hard. So it's interesting to see what they do and how they hold up against it. But, yeah, at the end of the day, like, that's the one part I will say about the defense. I also wanted to bring up another point. So when you look at, besides UCLA, when you look at the top 10, UTSA and Army is, so UCLA is 8, UTSA is 9, Army is 10. Army's also 8-1, right? But number 7 is Penn State, Tennessee, SMU, Michigan. Okay, Michigan is out of it. And then Ohio State, Ole Miss, Indiana. All those teams are fighting for a college football playoff spot.
Yeah.
That's overall rush defense, right? So stopping the run matters. And if you go to total defense, I'm pretty sure total defense is about the same. All the teams that are in the top in total defense probably are the teams that are in a college football contention. Look, Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Penn State, Tennessee, Oregon. NIU actually has a good defense. Tulane's trying to fight for a playoff spot, believe it or not. Army's fighting for a playoff spot. So you look at those teams, like, there's a reason why they're there, and there's a reason why they're making it to the playoffs. Defense still matters. Even though they're trying to make this offense world, defense still matters. So with that being said, depth should no longer be an issue because now you get 150 scholarships, right? So depth should no longer be an issue. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but let's flip over to recruiting real quick. And so we had 2 flips and we gained 1, right? So we gained, I'm going to mess his name up. Help me out with his name.
Yeah, Nila Tupou.
Nila Tupou. I was going to mess this. I was trying to get the last name in my head. Like, I'm going to mess his last name up. So we gained Nila Tupou from Folsom, which is a big get. Folsom High School is legit. Folsom played Poly this year. I saw Rider Lions play.
Yeah, and that's significant, right, Coach? Because Tupou is Lions' teammate, and so you're building that pipeline for perhaps the even greater prize, right? In Rider Lions class of 2026.
Yeah, and so I saw him. I'm like, who is number 1? He's a dog, and they're like, he's going to Utah. I'm like, they missed on that one. Like, I don't know how he's not going to SC. We got no flip. He's coming to SC. The only thing, and you remember when Ryan sent it to us, I said, that's a true rush in right there. And then what did Ryan say?
We're going to play him at tight end.
We're going to play him at tight end. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's when I start to question things like, that's a true rush in. Put him at tight and not tight end. Put him at defensive end. Let that dude go eat. Like, so hopefully the tight end doesn't work out. The tight end thing doesn't work out. And then be like, let's try him at defensive end. And he becomes just a Sean Cody with a mixture of Lawrence Jackson with a touch of Willie McGinnis. And that's
there we go. Okay.
A whole bunch of good. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, that dude's good. And we'll get an opportunity to see him play because I think Folsom's going to go to state, just how good that team is. So we'll be able to see him play. You get to see 2 SC guys play. You'll be like, oh, boy, we're looking good. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think the wall is up on the East Coast. We just got to put it up. No, that's a big wall. Let's just say the small wall. So the wall's up in the north. We got to get that wall built on the East Coast of California to keep people from getting out and going back east. You got anything on?
No, Coach. I mean, I think the Tupou, the only thing I'll add, I think you said it really well. I think this is one of those cases where I think he's a little underrated in terms of stars, right? I mean, he's 3-star. I think part of it is also sometimes when you are an athlete, you get a little bit shortchanged. And sometimes I think the recruiting agencies, through no fault of their own, I think there's a perception and a bias that an athlete, when you close your eyes and you think ATH, right? The recruiting moniker ATH, you think of some fast, small guy, wide receiver / corner, running back / corner. This kid Tupou at 6'4", 225. This kid is an athlete. He's just an athlete at the bigger positions. I mean, he's an athlete, tight end / defensive end. And so I think as a result of that, you just don't see guys that athletic at that size all too often. And I think he's been shortchanged with the 3 stars. So hopefully, he sort of gets into the shop here with Lincoln, and it works out on the offensive side. Coach, he could be kind of Tebow. He also could end up becoming kind of like Davis Warren of Penn State, the offensive version. I know you talked about, LJ and all of those guys on the defensive side, but the offensive version feels a little bit like Warren of Penn State. So I think we're excited. He's going to be raw when he comes in. So I think this is probably someone to Tupou that, we're thinking kind of big impact in 26 potentially, but a really nice get for who he is, but B, also the fact that he's the gateway potentially to Ryder Lyons, who would be kind of the heir apparent after Longstreet.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the kids we lost. Just to preface, this flip game is crucial, boy. I've never seen anything like this. This has to be the first year this has ever been like this. Like, it's just all hunting season. There's officially no rules in the NCAA. You know what I mean? Like, this flip game is crazy. Kids are getting flipped from Alabama. This flip game is crazy. So, Florida flipped Ty Jackson, the linebacker, 4-star guy. Looks like the guy was going to be the guy to replace Gentry. This kind of makes sense to me because Gentry's coming back and kids don't want to wait anymore. Like, if you're looking at like what the game is today, like, they want to play now. It's not the reality of the game. Like, you're 18, there's still grown men on the field. So it kind of makes sense to me, but it kind of doesn't. Seems like a little bit of fear of compete, but people are going to call me crazy when I say he's afraid to compete. Staying home, I get the whole staying home thing. It makes a lot of sense, but just, I don't know. Like, it's just hard to find a backer now because most backers are locked up. Now you got to hustle and go get a guy that you have to flip back to, not back, but you got to go get a guy to flip to replace that line. We need, not that line, but that person on the depth chart. So, but we need depth at defense, man. Like I mentioned, we're going to be playing against bigger rosters. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
We need the depth on the defense. So hopefully SC could get it. Am I worried about the loss? Not in the immediate future because we get Gentry back. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's the end of the world, but I do think it's a very, very important cog in the wheel because we do need the depth just in case Gentry does go down again.
Yeah, Coach, I'm sort of more concerned than you on this regard. A couple of things. One is obviously he's a top, 250 ranked player. He's 207 nationally. Ty Jackson, 4-star, 21st ranked linebacker in the country, and 24th overall in the state of Florida. You always get concerned, Coach, when these kids still take visits after they're committed, and I think
I always say that. Don't let your kids take visits.
And that was the key. And, he got to Gainesville, he's back home in the state of Florida. And what an atmosphere, Coach. I mean, Florida upsetting Ole Miss, you're sitting in the swamp and you're seeing that. And I got to be honest with you, Coach, that atmosphere right now, the Coliseum is nowhere close to that atmosphere right now. We're nowhere close to sort of an SEC-like atmosphere in terms of crowd, in terms of craziness, in terms of just electricity in the stadium. So I think he saw an opportunity. Florida beating LSU last week, now beating Ole Miss. I think he's sort of seeing an opportunity to really build something at Florida. And look, they're a blue chip name just as much as we are. I know we sort of get into the details there, but between Spurrier and Meyer, 3 national championships in the last 30 years, Coach. So they've been at the top of the sport. They've been at the top of the sport even more recently than USC has. So it's a formidable opponent that we sort of lost to. But I think to your deeper point, Coach, is, so much of the narrative the last 7 or 8 days has been lost Julian Lewis, got Hassan Longstreet. Lost Carday Smith, got Adam Dunn. Tupou is someone that we're excited about on the offensive side. But, Coach, now we lost Hayden Lowe, and now we lost Ty Jackson. So to your point, the two primary defensive guys in this recruiting class we have lost. And so we got to play some catch-up here on being able to replace them. Now, we do have Tagoya still committed as a linebacker, but, Coach, you got to look at that linebacking room. And Mascarenas Arnold is going to be gone. Cobb is going to be gone. I love Gentry as much as you do. And I think in an ideal world at 6'6", 215, Gentry is that queen piece on the chessboard like we talk about in Danton Lynn's system. But Gentry just can't stay healthy, Coach. Gentry sort of reminds me of Rafael Nadal. He's like Rafa Nadal. It's like
Anthony
that
Davis
body shouldn't be playing that sport. You know what I'm saying? Like Nadal doesn't look like a tennis player. Gentry doesn't look like a linebacker. It just that body shouldn't be playing that sport. And so the chances of Gentry being able to make it through a whole season, knock on wood, I hope he does because he's so talented, and I hope he blows up next year and it leads to tremendous NFL success. But the chances of Gentry being able to stay healthy over a 12, 13, 14-game college football season, Coach, I mean, that's at like under 20%. And so it's one of the reasons why Rayshawn Davis redshirted, because he really saw an opening there. So, you hope that Stevens pans out next year and he sort of builds on the things that he's growing here, and you got Gentry. But that's why you do need that pipeline to start getting going here, because you do lose a lot in that linebacker room moving forward. I don't think you're going to feel it as much in 25, but certainly on the other side of it, you will. So to me, that's the significant piece of losing Ty Jackson. And I think it has to also make everyone take a step back and really reemphasize, Coach, this Trojan wall, because, we talk about the recruiting, and we're going to be talking about recruiting a lot now, Coach, from now until December 4th. And then, in the off season, right? When that becomes sort of the dominant storyline. But think about all the guys we talked about over the last 8 or 9 months: Justice Terry, Isaiah Gibson, Ty Jackson, Hayden Lowe, on and on we went. And how many of those guys actually sort of panned out at the end, right? So even when we get these commits, until it's the dotted line, it really doesn't mean anything. It is so the Wild West at this particular point. And I think that's where localization matters so much. I've been harping on that Trojan wall of when SC is going to be back, because you want to claim your territory, number one. You want to show your geographical dominance. But in today's day and age, Coach, where there is no recruiting window, where these kids have access to other teams 24/7, you want to be geographically close to your recruits, right? So that's the challenge of going and consistently recruiting in Georgia or Florida or Louisiana. You can go there and make a great impression, but then what happens when you take that flight and come back home, right? Yeah. I mean, you can't go live there. You can't go park there. These other local schools are just going to have a lot more access to those kids than you are. I mean, it's kind of like being in a long-distance relationship, right, Coach? It's like, we had a great time for the weekend when we're there, but, like, what happens when we take the flight and we're away from each other? And I think that's really that's why I think localization matters even more, because that's the advantage that USC has in California in building the Trojan Wall, because not only are they the biggest name in California in football and potentially on the West Coast with Oregon, but they have the more access to those players. So it's a domino effect. You're the bigger brand and you're seeing them more. It's almost like compounding interest in finance, right? And so that's really why SC's got to really change their strategy here, Coach. And Lincoln's got to say, look, 85, 90% of the time, I'm going to focus on California. If there's a kid that really fits my system, some great wide receiver, like Miles in Texas, or some great sort of weapon, do it all defensively that we really think is going to get us over the top, we'll put that final 10, 15% of calories outside of California on really a position of need. But we really need to lock up California. The fact that he stretched this recruiting strategy so thin across the country, we're feeling it now. And now it's going to be sort of scramble mode from now until December 4th. We're going to be fine, Coach. It'll be a top 15 recruiting class, top 16 recruiting class. But SC always has that, right? And so
that's normal.
That's normal. It's not like it's going to be some great recruiting class by SC standards. So then the question is, well, you could have gotten that staying local with a lot less calories and feeling a lot better about your kids than right now. And so I think Lincoln's going to have to take a step back and really sort of revisit the recruiting strategy. Again, shocking to me, Coach, that this is a year 3 conversation we're having with this guy when it should have been a day 3 conversation.
Yeah, and the thing, the thing about recruiting kids so far away, Like Arizona is even fine. You could recruit a kid from Arizona. You could get to him fast. You can get to Utah fast. But you can recruit a kid from Florida, Georgia, Texas is a little bit shaky. Back in those states, the number one recruiter of all recruiting is back at those states. And once that recruiter gets their hands on them, like, you sure you want to go all the way to California?
The girlfriend, as Coach says.
Hey, girlfriend is the undisputed champion in recruiting. No coach can out recruit the girlfriend. I don't care what anybody says. You sure you want to go to California? That's just so far. What are we going to do? Like, you know what? I could go to Gainesville. You could visit me every weekend. Okay. That I can make that work. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff to it. We had another flip.
Dwayne Morris.
Dwayne Morris. Yeah.
3-star running back,
back.
kind of flipped to Tennessee. It's tough, Coach. You sort of go into these SEC venues and this energy and the tailgating and all of that. It's a tough proposition to say no to sometimes. And obviously Tennessee's had a great running game this year. They're going to be in the college football playoff. So that's a formidable one, to lose to. But again, in California, you can sort of blow a bubble and you can, find a great running back down the street. So I'm not as worried about Dwayne Morris by any stretch, particularly in a Lincoln Riley type of scheme and in the region that we're in. So those kind of minor transactions, Coach, happen. To me, it's those defensive guys that you've already put so much into, right? It's the sunk cost phenomena. It's like, man, we put so much into these kids, particularly because they weren't in California. We had to take all these trips and then we lost them at the end. That's going to be the real key in recruiting. How do you minimize the sunk cost moving forward? There's really sort of a mathematics and an economics to recruiting moving forward, and there needs to be. The way, the Oakland A's thought about Moneyball 20 years ago in baseball of, winning really means scoring runs, and how do you get the analytics? You sort of have to think more logically in terms of how do you minimize the sunk cost with these kids? Because everyone's going to lose kids, everyone's going to get kids. But where you don't want to lose is in positions of tremendous need where you have less depth and with kids that you spend a lot of time with, because the opportunity cost of what you could have done with that time elsewhere is really what's painful. So I think Lincoln's, obviously it's pedal to the metal here, Coach, until December 4th. But Lincoln's going to have to take a step back and say, look, Trojan wall. This thing has to be 85 to 90% Trojan wall. And then my last 10 to 15% on guys that I really like for very special, specific reasons, I'm going to go elsewhere. That's exactly what Pete said, right, Coach? I mean, you saw it. Remember that famous video clip going around of the ABC broadcast way back when you were playing, when it was the USC Nebraska game back in 2006 in the Coliseum. Bob Davie, who was doing the telecast, was saying, Pete Carroll believes in, all about California, Southern California. If there's a guy we really like, and for a certain specific set of reasons, whether it's a cultural fit, a talent fit, scheme fit that really sort of shines as an outlier, then we'll go and be kind of national with it. But otherwise, we really want to protect it. Lincoln's got to get back to that.
Yeah, that's why he's all about on the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Like the Rose Bowl is like the bowl game.
I mean, that's what it is. Pete cared more about the Rose Bowl than he did about national championships. Yeah. I mean, that's not hyperbole.
Yeah, they legit put a vinyl up in the locker room on the Rose Bowl with the picture of the Rose Bowl. So, I mean, it's a factual thing. I'm not too worried. You're right. I'm not too worried about losing the running back because we have a pretty good running back room. I feel like they're going to go get one in the portal, but they need to be careful with that because they don't want to lose Quentin Joyner. I don't want to lose Quentin Joyner, right? So just those small things to be careful about. But, yeah, the Dwayne Morris thing, and you know how I get, and I think I'm kind of brash, like when we get the alerts and it's like, oh, we just signed a 3-star guy. I'm like, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? It might be diamond in the rough, but, like, we got to start, if we want to compete, we got to start competing with recruiting, right? We got to win in the recruiting battle, and we got to start getting these 5-star guys. And these 5-star guys has to be a tough sell for them to leave. We have plenty of 5-star guys in California, right? Like, so that's just like my brother. He was like, you guys just lost the number 1 quarterback. I was like, we got the number 2 player in the state. He was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it needs to be like that. It needs to be how it used to be, like SC or nothing.
Yep.
Right. From Eureka all the way down to Chula Vista, SC or nothing. Like, it's so funny because you hear guys like our age say, oh, yeah, I remember when SC was recruiting me. You go, oh, yeah, like, yeah. And, I broke my arm. I'm like, that's crazy because Mark Tyler tore his ACL and they still brought him in.
Right, right.
Like, so it's like, you get the fabrications of being recruited by SC. Like, so it needs to get back to that.
We're at the beginning, Coach. I think we're just at the infancy here, And again,
year 3.
I love at year 3. I mean, and I love the fact that Longstreet, we were able to get him so quickly, and Hewer did such a great job there. But it also sort of begs the question, why wasn't Longstreet in the plan to begin with, right? I mean, it was sort of a reactive versus a proactive. Now, siding with Lincoln Riley in all fairness, I think Longstreet was a late bloomer. He sort of blew up his junior year, and a little bit of a smaller kid too. So, it's hard to, when you get that growth spurt and then when you sort of blow up on the field. So I get that. But it always feels like Lincoln Riley is sort of one of those kids where he won't just listen. He has to sort of go do it his way. He's got to go touch the stove, get burnt, and then he realizes it's hot. People telling him it's hot doesn't do anything. He's got to go, get burnt himself before he realizes it. And so he's got to be able to sort of get these things quicker. This is not rocket science over here. These are things that he should be doing from day 3 on the job, and we're having these year 3 conversations. And so that's the frustrating part of, is he going to get there?
Yeah, so there's an old black saying, you're going to believe that fat means greasy. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to find out fat means greasy. So he's finding out it's greasy. Maybe this is what we need to do. Listen to this. Check this out. We go get our boy Ricky Caruso, right? Go get our boy Ricky Caruso. We have him fund the NIL with the stipulation of a certain percentage needs to be California kids.
Hey, there's something.
You know what I mean?
There's something. Yeah.
Maybe we even get Karen Bass involved with, her and Ricky have a really good relationship. So
yeah, it's love hate. It's sort of it's a victory belt relationship really between Caruso and Bass. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we get them involved, get a little bit of funds involved, a little bit of state funding for the NIL, and get everybody all upset. But I don't know. Like, I'm with you. We do have to go there, but we'll find out. It's getting close. We got a week now. It's Thanksgiving week. Next week is signing day, so we'll figure out what's going on there, and we'll see where we end up with. We see what we got. We do have National Signing Day also the first Tuesday or Wednesday in February, so we'll see what we get from there. We'll find out what we have from the portal, but we got to win in recruiting. I think we got to do a better job recruiting. And so here's my question, too. Wasn't this wide receiver coach supposed to be this awesome recruiter and the ultimate guy and able to sign the deal with everybody? That's not coming into fruition very well here, is it?
Yeah, I mean, Coach, I think there's a really nice coaching staff, but you also got to realize that, we talk about Entz and, like Ty Jackson, Entz recruited him, he goes to Florida. You talk about, running backs coach, you talk about, defensive line. I mean, Henderson lost, Hayden Lowe, right? I mean, for as great as it is, I think you can talk about coaches all you want. And, the development piece there. But, Coach, this is getting so much more about the money that it's, things like culture, things like development. That's a hard sell, especially if, look, Coach, let's be honest, and we'll wrap it up on this point, and we've talked about this. It's not like they're not going to get developed elsewhere. I mean, it's like these kids, like Ty Jackson picked Florida over USC. He didn't pick Chattanooga over USC. I mean, Hayden Lowe picked Miami over USC. I mean, we're talking about, Dwayne Morris picked Tennessee over USC. These are all powers that are, all comparable schools. So I think the development point is incremental, even if you've got a really nice position coach, because, all these schools, I mean, all these top 15, top 20 programs are all factories for the NFL. It really comes down to, what's in your war chest in terms of finances.
Yeah. I have a question for you to think about before we shake out of here. Prime goes to Dallas. Julian Lewis isn't happy. He enters the portal. Does he get a chance to be a backup at SC?
No. I just think it's I think at that point, Julian Lewis feels a little bit tainted, not just for USC, but just in terms of the perception of him constantly sort of hopping around. It's kind of like the UNLV quarterback coach from earlier in the year. He sat out at 4-0. I just don't know. Super talented kid, but I think the way it's been so transactional, I don't think it's worth the hassle. Again, it goes back to that sunk cost piece, right? I mean, why waste effort, recruiting time, recruiting resources, recruiting passion and energy if you feel like the kid's going to go somewhere else, eventually if it doesn't work out. So if he becomes available, let the highest bidder, take him. I think SC's got much more important needs, particularly when you've already got Maeva, you've got Longstreet, you're thinking about Ryder Lyons. The deeper question here, Coach, is that front seven. The front seven depth is what's necessary.
And you can't build it on the portal. Well, man, we put a great one together today, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your effort. We're out of here early today, 7:39, but the sun's on me. I was like, oh, man, it's late, but it's 7:39. If you want to check out a great article that's going to be published tomorrow by our very own Madman, go to LAFB Network and go check that out. If you want to learn about the Rams, the Chargers, and the other team that returned our bail gracefully, you can also go to LAFB. If you want to go check out fantasy football, go check out my guys, the Decide guys. They're also on LAFB. They post videos every day on YouTube on LAFB Network. Madman, we put one together. Ryan's enjoying
Thanksgiving in Denver. Absolutely. It'll be great. And Coach, looking forward. We're probably going to put another episode out there, certainly previewing Notre Dame, of course, for our fans. So we'll do that, and then we'll see everyone on the other side of the game on a live stream.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully it's a victory Saturday.
Yep, absolutely.
Because they play in the middle of the day, right?
They play in the middle of the day, 12:30.
Yep, middle of the day. Hopefully you get a victory Saturday. We're happy about it. At this point, I will say this. At this point, even if it's within 3, I think I could be satisfied depending on how they play. I'll put that stipulation on there.
Okay, Alfred Riley, ladies and gentlemen. Alfred Riley.
Look.
No, it's fair, Coach. I mean, I think we're looking at how they're playing more than the score at this point. This is all for next year. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Man, let's put one together for the Jules Shillelagh. It's Jules Shillelagh week. There we go.
Sir.
Yes, the battle of the Jules Shillelagh. So definitely, I appreciate you, man. We'll put one together, friends. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for watching. You know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.